The rain came down in thin, sharp lines. Bouncing off the metal streets of Carith Prime, neon signs flickered weakly, their colors bleeding into puddles that rippled with each passing hovercar. Ethan pulled the hood of his jacket tighter over his head. He had just finished a long mission, a job that had paid little and cost him more than it was worth. All he wanted now was a warm bed and a hot drink at the spaceport bar before the next transport left this cursed city. But then he heard it at first. It was faint as sharp zap, followed by a short, high-pitched cry. Then came the heavy thud of boots against wet pavement, the kind that meant more than one person was running. Ethan slowed his steps, turning his head toward the sound. From a narrow alley, lit only by the dull red glow of an emergency light, a small figure stumbled into view. She looked no older than 20 in human years, her silver-blue skin glistening from the rain, her long glowing hair plastered against her cheeks. In her trembling hands, she clutched a small metallic device that pulsed with soft white light. Behind, her shadows moved 3 tall alien enforcers, each armored in black plating and carrying heavy plasma rifles. Their movements were sharp, confident, like hunters closing in on cornered prey. Ethan didn't know who she was. He didn't care. But there was something in the way she looked over her shoulder, desperation mixed with the stubborn will to survive that made him stop in his tracks. One of the enforcers shouted in a language Ethan didn't understand. The girl froze for a heartbeat, her eyes darting left and right. That moment of hesitation was all it took. One soldier raised his rifle and fired. Ethan moved without thinking. His boots splashed through a puddle as he stepped between the blast. And the girl? The bolt of plasma slammed into his chest armor with a searing impact, knocking the wind out of him. His HUD screamed warnings armor. Integrity, 62%. The girl's eyes widened, her mouth parting in shock. The enforcers didn't pause. Another shot came, hitting Ethan in the side. Pain tore through him, but he kept his stance, forcing himself to stay upright. Run, he hissed to the girl through clenched teeth. She didn't run. Instead, she grabbed his arm with surprising strength and yanked him backward toward the alley's side path. The enforcers fired again, bolts sizzling past them and scorching the wet walls. Ethan ducked low, letting her guide him through the maze of narrow streets. The city's underbelly was a tangle of pipes, steam vents, and rusted stairways. Shadows twisted with each flicker of broken streetlights. Every corner they turned brought the sound of footsteps chasing them. Who are they? Ethan managed between breaths. They will kill me for what I carry, she said quickly, her voice trembling yet sharp. And if they get it, many more will die. Ethan frowned but didn't ask more. He'd been in enough bad situations to know when time was too short for explanations. They slipped into a narrow service corridor that reeked of oil and damp metal. Above, the sound of sirens wailed, echoing down the steel walls. They're sealing the exits, she whispered, her glowing eyes darting upward. Ethan cursed under his breath. This wasn't a random street fight. This was a citywide hunt. Whoever she was, the people chasing her had serious power. And now, by stepping in, he had just put himself in their way. They emerged into a wider street. But this one was worse. Bright floodlights lit every corner, and armored patrol units were already blocking the far end. The girl froze, panic flashing across her face. Back! Ethan hissed, pulling her into the shadows of a nearby doorway. From their hiding spot, he watched the patrols sweep the street, scanning every dark corner with handheld scanners. The rain made the light scatter, making it harder to stay hidden. The girl looked up at him, her lips trembling. "Right. Why did you take the blast from me?" she asked softly. Ethan didn't have a good answer. Maybe it was the soldier in him, the instinct to protect the defenseless. Maybe it was just a bad habit of stepping into trouble. But he didn't answer her, not yet. Instead, he peeked around the corner, judging the patrol's movements. If they stayed, they'd be found. If they moved, they'd be seen. Neither was good. Then he noticed a narrow drain tunnel half covered by debris across the street. It wasn't much, but it could get them off the patrol's path. "We move on my signal," he said quietly. The girl nodded, clutching the glowing device tighter against her chest. A patrolman's scanner beam swept past their doorway. As soon as it moved on, Ethan grabbed the girl's hand and sprinted across the open space. Plasma bolts hissed through the rain behind them, missing by inches. He dove into the tunnel, pulling her with him. The sound of boots thundering after them. They crawled into darkness, the smell of wet stone and rust filling their lungs. The noise of the city faded, replaced by the steady drip of water somewhere. Ahead, the girl's breathing was fast, shaky. "They won't stop," she whispered. "Not until I'm dead." Ethan glanced at her, then at the glowing device in her arms. "Then we better make sure that doesn't happen." Cliffhanger. Behind them, the tunnel lit up with the red glow of approaching soldiers' scanners. The tunnel was cramped, wet, and smelled like a mix of rust and burnt wires. Every drop of water that fell from the ceiling echoed too loudly, making Ethan's instincts twitch. Somewhere behind them, the faint red glow of scanning lights flickered. Against the tunnel walls, getting closer, Ethan's chest still burned from the plasma hits. Each breath was sharp, his armor's power readings dropping with every step. But the girl Lyra, though he still didn't know her name, kept pulling at his arm, urging him deeper into the darkness. "They'll be in here within minutes," Ethan muttered. "We need another way out." Lyra didn't argue. Instead, she knelt, pressed her glowing palm against a section of the wall, and whispered in her own language. The metal shifted, plates sliding open like an iris to reveal a hidden side passage. Ethan stared. "That's not standard city infrastructure." Ink. Looked up at him briefly, her eyes catching what little light there was. "It's older than the city. Hurry." They stepped into the passage, and the wall sealed shut behind them, plunging them into pitch-black silence. Ethan's helmet sensors adjusted, painting the darkness in shades of green. They were in an old maintenance shaft narrow, lined with cables as thick as his arm, humming faintly with power. As they moved, Lyra's steps began to slow. She glanced at his side, where the plasma burn had scorched through the armor. The smell of singed fabric and skin hung in the air. "You took 2 full shots," she said, almost accusingly. "Better me than you," Ethan replied simply. She hesitated before speaking again. "Why?" "You don't even know me." Ethan gave a short, humorless laugh. "I don't need to. I saw 3 armed men aiming at someone who couldn't fight back. That's enough." She didn't answer, but her grip on the strange device in her arms tightened. After several minutes of weaving through the narrow shaft, Lyra stopped abruptly. Ahead, the passage opened into a round chamber with walls covered in strange alien carvings. They glowed faintly in response to her presence. Ethan stepped in cautiously. "Where are we?" "This is part of the old Veil network," she said quietly. "It was built by my ancestors before the city was even here. Only the royal bloodlines know its paths." That caught Ethan's attention. "Royal bloodlines?" Lyra met his gaze. "I am Lyra Varel, the last." Before he could respond, the chamber's entrance behind them erupted with gunfire. Energy bolts scorched the carvings, sparks flying. Ethan moved without thinking, shoving Lyra toward a fallen pillar for cover as he drew his sidearm. The plasma blast that came next was aimed straight at her head. Ethan stepped into its path. It hit his shoulder like molten iron, spinning him halfway around and sending a hot wave of pain down his arm. His weapon clattered to the floor. Lyra caught him before he fell completely. "You're bleeding badly," she said, her voice shaking. Ethan grit his teeth. "Can we finish this before I run out of blood?" From her belt, Lyra pulled a small vial of shimmering liquid. Without warning, she poured it onto his wound. Ethan hissed, every nerve screamed as the substance burned like acid before rapidly cooling. His shoulder felt stronger, the bleeding slowed. "What is that?" he asked. "Royal nanogel, reserved for protectors of the crown," she replied, her eyes locking with his. "Today, that's you." The soldiers pushed into the chamber, moving with military precision. But Ethan wasn't backing down. His rifle was gone, but he still had the element of surprise. He grabbed a loose chunk of the glowing wall and hurled it at the lead soldier's helmet. shattering his visor. In the same motion, he charged forward, grabbing the weapon from the stunned attacker and firing point-blank at the next two. The chamber filled with the deafening hum of plasma fire by. The time the last soldier fell, Ethan was leaning against the wall, breathing hard. Lyra stepped beside him, placing her hand gently on his uninjured arm. "You're hurt, yet you still shield me," she whispered. "You have no idea what that means to my people." Ethan forced a smirk. "I'm starting to think you're a lot more than just a girl running from trouble." Lyra's expression grew serious. "And I'm starting to think you're a lot more than just a mercenary." Cliffhanger. A low rumble shook the chamber. Lyra's eyes widened. "We need to move now. The old veil isn't empty anymore." The low rumble didn't stop. It grew deeper, rolling through the floor like a heartbeat. Dust drifted from the carved ceiling, and faint blue light began to seep from the cracks in the walls. Ethan's instinct screamed trap, but Lyra's tense expression told him it was something far older than a simple ambush. He kept his rifle up, scanning the chamber. "That sound isn't coming from them," he said, nodding toward the dead soldiers. Lyra's voice was low but urgent. "The old veil is waking. These tunnels, they recognize my presence, and yours." Ethan frowned. "Recognize? I'm not one of your people. You took the blasts," she said firmly, "and the network sees intent more than blood." Before he could respond, the floor under the far wall folded open like a mechanical flower, revealing a stairway spiraling down into darkness. Warm, dry air rushed out, carrying the scent of something ancient metal, stone, and a faint electric temps. Lyra stepped toward it without hesitation. "We have to go. Once it closes, it won't open again for decades." Ethan followed, but every step made his armor feel heavier. The heat from the plasma burn still lingered under the patched nanojowl, and the metallic taste in his mouth told him the hits had done more than bruise bone. Halfway down the stairs, the glow from Lyra's dev intensified. She slowed, glancing at him. "You're weakening." "I'll manage," Ethan muttered. "Just tell me where this path ends." "At the heart chamber," she replied. "It's where the crown's last defense waits. The device will awaken it. If I can get there alive." Ethan noticed. She said alive, not we. That meant she knew the next stretch was going to be worse than the soldiers. The stairs ended in a massive circular chamber that looked nothing like the tunnels above. Smooth black walls curved inward, dotted with faintly glowing runes. Center stood a stone dais. Floating above it was a sphere of pure white light, pulsing like it was breathing. Ethan's HUD went wild radiation warnings, magnetic interference, and a faint voice in his comms that wasn't in any language. He knew. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra stepped closer to the dais, her voice soft with awe. "The Oath Forge. My ancestors built it to bind the will of protectors to the air. It can give you strength beyond what you've known, but it demands a price." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What kind of price?" Before she could answer, the far wall shimmered and figures emerged, but they weren't soldiers. They were translucent, clad in ornate battle armor from centuries past, their faces hidden behind masks of light. Each carried a blade that burned with pale fire. Lyra's tone turned grim. "Guardians of the Oath Forge, they will not let me pass, unless my protector proves worthy." Ethan sighed. "Let me guess, that's me." The first guardian stepped forward without a sound, its blade leaving trails of light in the air. Ethan raised his stolen plasma rifle, but Lyra shook her head. "They are not of flesh. You cannot kill them with your weapons. You must meet them as they demand." She tossed him a short, single-edged sword that had been hidden in the base of the dais. The hilt felt warm in his hand, almost alive. The guardian struck first, moving faster than anything Ethan had fought before. He blocked by instinct the clash of blade against blade, sending a shockwave up his arm. Each strike from the guardian was precise, forcing him to read its movements like a puzzle under fire. Pain from his earlier wounds slowed him, but every time he thought he'd fall, Lyra's voice cut through the haze. "Stand, Ethan. They see your will, not your wounds." Minutes or maybe seconds passed before the Guardian's blade paused at his throat. Instead of killing him, it stepped back, lowering its weapon. The others did the same. Lyra exhaled in relief. You've passed. The Oathforge accepts you. Dat. Sphere of light flared and a beam lanced out, striking Ethan in the chest. It flooded through him, not burning, but strengthening. His pain faded. His armor sealed itself. And his vision sharpened until he could see every detail in the room. But as the power settled into his body, the voice from his cums grew louder, forming words he could now understand. Protect the air. Until death, your life is no longer your own. Ethan looked at Lyra, realizing the truth. This wasn't just protection anymore. It was a bond he couldn't walk away from. Cliffhanger. From above, the sound of collapsing stone echoed down the stairway. Someone had found another way in, and they weren't alone. The sound from above was no ordinary rockfall. Ethan recognized the rhythm-controlled detonations, step by step, breaking through layers of old stone. Whoever was coming had planned this. They were cutting straight into the Oathforge chamber. Lyra's eyes narrowed, her silver pupils glowing faintly. They shouldn't know this place exists. They shouldn't. Ethan replied, checking the charge on his stolen plasma rifle, but they do. Which means you've got a leak somewhere. Chamber's calm, ancient glow was replaced by a flicker of red emergency light as cracks split the far wall. Through them came the distorted echo of voices, soldiers speaking in clipped commands, and then the unmistakable hiss of a breaching torch. Ethan's instincts screamed to take cover. But the Oathforge's voice still thrummed in his skull. Protect the air until death. His muscles felt charged, faster and stronger than they should have been. The wall blew inward with a concussive shockwave. Dust and shards of stone blasted through the air, and from the smoke emerged not ordinary troopers but enforcers in heavy exoframes, each twice the size of a man. Their armor shimmered with an energy shield, and their weapons were linked directly to their suits' rapid-fire plasma. Cannons that could shred a target in seconds. Ethan dove behind a curved section of wall as the first volley ripped through the chamber. Those stone carvings shattered. Chunks of the dais flew into the air, and the smell of molten rock filled his nose. They'll destroy the Oathforge, Lyra shouted, ducking behind a pillar. Not if I drop them first, Ethan said. He sprinted out from cover, firing in controlled bursts. His upgraded reflexes made his aim impossibly fast. 3 shots took out one enforcer's shield generator, the next to hit the joints of its exoframe, sending it crashing to the floor. But the others adapted quickly. One launched a cluster grenade that detonated midair, filling the room with blinding light. Ethan rolled, shielding his eyes. But the blast still left a ringing in his ears. Through the haze, Lyra activated her device. A holographic veil unfolded from it, bending light. In strange ways, Ethan realized he could move inside the shimmering distortion without being clearly seen. This is your chance, she yelled. They can't track you in the veil. Using the distortion, Ethan closed the distance to the nearest exoframe. He leapt onto its side, driving the ancient short sword into the armor's power core. The blade didn't just cut it. Pulsed, sending a shock through the suit that caused the pilot inside to scream before the whole frame collapsed. The last enforcer backed toward the breach. Firing wildly, Ethan grabbed a broken plasma rifle from the ground, jury-rigged its energy cell into an overload, and tossed it. The makeshift grenade detonated, vaporizing the enforcer's weapon and sending him sprawling. The fight was over in seconds, but the victory didn't feel like one. The breach was still open, and more footsteps were echoing down the tunnel lighter, faster, too many to count. Ethan turned to Lyra. How many more? Her expression hardened. An entire strike company, and they'll keep coming until I'm dead. Ethan looked at the Oathforge, still glowing faintly in the middle of the ruined chamber. Then we don't hold this ground. We make them chase us somewhere they don't want to go. Lyra hesitated. There's only one place worse. For them, the Black Ruins. Even my people fear it. Ethan smirked. Perfect. Act. Cliffhanger. As they slipped into a narrow escape corridor, a calm, cold voice came through the breach, one that made Lyra freeze in her tracks. Run, little air. I want to see how far your human shield will take you. The escape corridor wound downward like the throat of some massive beast, its walls damp and covered in jagged mineral growths. The faint glow from Lyra's device cast warped shadows, making the passage feel alive. Behind them, the strike companies. Pursuit was a distant but steady drumbeat, boots on stone. Weapons clinking, the predator closing in. Ethan's breathing was steady, though his mind was running through every possible choke point they could use. "These black ruins," he said. Glancing at Lyra, "You ever been here?" Her expression was grim. "Once, and I swore I never would again." They emerged into a cavern so large, Ethan's helmet light couldn't find the ceiling. Massive stone figures stood in rows on either side of a central path, their shapes carved in the likeness of warriors from some forgotten age. Their armor was nothing like the sleek tech above. This was heavy, brutal, meant for crushing more than protecting. Each statue gripped a weapon, hammers, axes, jagged swords. Ethan slowed. "Statues." Lyra shook her head. "Not statues. Guardians." As if answering her, the first two nearest the path stirred. Their stone surfaces cracked, flakes falling away to reveal a dark, metallic underlayer, pulsing with faint orange light. Heads turned, eyes igniting like twin furnaces. The sound of grinding stone and shifting gears echoed through the cavern. Ethan raised his rifle. "Friend or foe, I judge," Lyra said softly. "They were built to protect the inner sanctum. But they protect it from everyone, even me." One guardian stepped forward, blocking the path, its massive axe dragging sparks along the floor. A deep, resonant voice rolled from its chest knot in words Ethan understood. But the meaning pressed into his mind like a weight. "Prove you are worthy to pass." Before Ethan could respond, another sound reached them, the distant hum of the strike. Company's scanners, now at the mouth of the cavern, the guardians turned their heads slightly toward the intruders, did not move aside. Ethan understood the choice: fight the guardians now, or face the soldiers while trapped between them. "I'll keep them off you," Ethan told Lyra. "You focus on whatever ritual or password these things want." Lyra gave him a sharp look. "There's no password. They respond to action." The first guardian swung its axe, the impact shaking the ground. Ethan dove to the side, rolling up into a crouch. His plasma rifle barked twice, but the bolts dissipated. Against the guardian's armor, like sparks against a wall. "Energy weapons won't work," Lyra shouted. "Their core is deep inside. Strike with force, not heat." Ethan's hand went to the ancient short sword on his belt, the one from the Oathforge. It felt heavier here, as if the cavern itself fed its weight. He charged, ducking, under a second swing, and slammed the blade into the guardian's knee joint. The weapon hissed as it bit through stone and metal, sending the massive figure stumbling backward. The second guardian stepped in, its hammer swinging in a wide arc. Ethan barely managed to use the first guardian's body as cover, the hammer striking with enough force to send cracks spidering through the floor. From the corner of his eye, Ethan saw the strike company's first wave pouring into the cavern. They froze for a heartbeat, seeing the guardians, and then made the worst mistake possible. They opened fire. The cavern filled with thunder. The guardians, now recognizing a true threat, turned their fury on everyone. "What now?" Ethan yelled. Over the chaos, Lyra's voice was urgent. "The guardians fight until only those they deem worthy remain. We have to survive longer than the soldiers." Ethan grinned despite himself. "I can work with that." He used the chaos like a blade letting. The soldiers draw the guardians' attacks, then striking at exposed joints and weak points. Stone shattered, sparks flew, screams echoed. The battle was a whirlwind of ancient might and modern firepower, and Ethan moved through it like he had been born for it. Finally, the last guardian standing turned its burning gaze toward Ethan and E. "Lyra." It lowered its weapon, stepping aside. "You pass." Lyra translated quietly. Cliffhanger, as they stepped into the passage beyond. A shadow detached itself from the wall ahead, tall, armored in black, with a voice Ethan had heard through the breach earlier. "So, the human really is worth the fuss." The figure stepped forward, the sound of boots on ancient stone echoing through the narrow passage. The armor was nothing like the soldier's gear. It was custom forged, black as deep space, with faint crimson lines running along its plates like veins. A long, curved blade rested on one shoulder, humming faintly with energy. Ethan felt his grip tighten on the short sword from the Oathforge. His instincts told him this wasn't just another enemy commander. This was the kind who ended battles single-handedly. Lyra's voice was barely above a whisper. General Koresh. The name carried weight, even to Ethan, who had never heard it before. Lyra's expression said the rest. This was the one who had taken her family, her city, and her throne. Koresh's helmet tilted slightly, his voice calm but sharp as glass. The air hides behind a human, that is, new. Ethan took a slow step forward, putting himself between Lyra and the general. Oh, well. You're going to find I'm bad at letting people shoot my friends. Koresh chuckled a low, humorless sound. Friendship is a weak shield. And then he moved. It was faster than anything Ethan expected. One moment Koresh was 10 meters away. The next, his blade was coming down in a diagonal slash that could have cleaved Ethan in half. The Oathforge bond flared in Ethan's chest, his body reacting faster than thought. Steel met energy in a burst of sparks, impact pushing him back to steps but not breaking his guard. Lyra's voice rang out from behind him. Ethan, his power comes from the armor. Disrupt the flow lines. Ethan adjusted his stance, letting Koresh press the attack. Swing was heavy but precise, testing Ethan's defense. Plasma burns on the walls marked where missed strikes. Landed, the fight was brutal, close, fast, and unrelenting. Koresh's blade bit into Ethan's shoulder plate, slicing it open. But the Oathforge kept his muscles steady and his mind clear. He caught Koresh's wrist on the next swing, twisting hard, slammed the ancient short sword against one of the glowing red veins on the general's armor. The effect was immediate. The hum of Koresh's weapon faltered, his movements slowing. Slightly, Ethan pressed the advantage, driving him back step by step toward the chamber's edge. But Koresh wasn't finished. With a snarl, he slammed a knee into Ethan's gut, knocking the wind out of him, then shoved him hard against the wall. The sword clattered from Ethan's hand. The general raised his blade for the killing strike. Should have let her die in the alley, human. Before the blade fell, a blinding white light erupted from behind Ethan. Lyra, holding the glowing device high. It flared like a miniature sun, sending arcs of energy racing across the walls and straight into Koresh's armor. The general staggered, roaring as the red veins across his suit flared and then went dark. Ethan lunged, grabbing his fallen sword and driving it into the armor's chest plate. Sparks burst, and Koresh dropped to one knee, breathing hard but still alive. Ethan leaned in close. Friendship might be a weak shield, but it's a hell of a good reason to fight. Koresh glared at him, but didn't rise. Dead. He tapped the side of his helmet, sending a short burst transmission. Ethan didn't know what it said. Lyra's expression hardened. Reinforcements were coming. We can't finish him here, she said, pulling at Ethan's arm. Ethan backed away slowly, sword still ready. Koresh didn't pursue, just watched them leave, his voice echoing after them. Run, human. Every step you take makes you mine. Cliffhanger, as they emerged from the passage into the upper ruins. Ethan saw the sky above the city turning crimson, not from sunset but from the first wave of the Kuzair fleet closing in. The crimson sky was alive with motion. Warships cut through the clouds like hunting blades, their engines growling, the glow of their weapons already warming the air above the city. Below, streets swarmed with the Ku's ground forces converging. On the ruins from every direction, Ethan and Lyra emerged from the shattered archway of the black ruins into the open. The ancient dust still clinging to their clothes. For the first time since the alley, Ethan noticed she wasn't clutching the device as tightly in, pulled steadily in her hands, as if it knew the moment was here. They're going to burn the city to the ground, Ethan said, scanning the skyline. Even if you survive, there won't be a throne left to claim. Lyra looked up at the crimson clouds, her expression unreadable. That's why the throne was never the point. The people are. She stepped closer to the edge of the ruins, holding the device high. Its pulse grew faster, brighter, until light began running through the cracks in the ancient stone beneath their feet. Ethan heard a deep, metallic rumble from below, like a giant engine waking after centuries. From the heart of the ruins, colossal towers of alloy and stone began to rise, linked by shimmering arcs of energy. They formed a dome over the city in seconds, and when the first warship fired, its plasma barrage hit the shield and scattered harmlessly into the sky. The streets erupted with shouts, panic turning into hope, but the Ku's fleet adapted quickly. Fighters broke formation, diving toward the shield in suicide runs, hoping to destabilize it through sheer force. Ethan didn't wait for orders. He bolted toward the nearest turret mount revealed by the rising defenses. The Oathforge's bond surged within him as he climbed the tower, ancient controls sinking instantly to his touch. The turret's targeting matrix unfolded like a predator's jaw. Ethan grinned. He opened fire. Each shot was a beam of condensed energy that sliced through enemy fighters, turning them into falling debris. The shield shimmered under repeated impacts, but the defense network was holding. Below, Lyra stood in the open, channeling the device's power into the city's systems, her figure glowing like a living beacon. It was working until a shadow fell over the battlefield. A massive dreadnought broke through the cloud cover, larger than anything Ethan had ever seen. And at its prow, magnified on the fleet's holobroadcast, stood General Koresh. "This ends now." Koresh's voice boomed across every comm channel. The dreadnought's main cannon began to charge, eyed the light building until it was a miniature sun pointed directly at the city. Ethan's turret wouldn't scratch it in time. "Ethan," Lyra shouted over the comm. "The shield can redirect that shot, but it needs a manual core link inside the control spire." "How long do I have?" Ethan asked, already sliding down the turret's ladder. "Less than a minute." He ran harder than he ever had before, vaulting debris, ignoring the ache in his battered body. The Oathforge bond made every step lighter, every breath sharper. He reached the spire, tearing open the access panel and slamming his hand onto the ancient interface. Pain lanced through him as the Oathforge link fused with the shield core. For a moment he was the defense network. He could feel every point of pressure on the shield, every particle of heat from the charging cannon above. The dreadnought fired. Ethan roared, channeling every ounce of strength into the shield's redirect protocols. The beam hit, the impact shaking the entire city. And then, like sunlight hitting a mirror, it rebounded upward, slicing clean through the dreadnought's midsection. The ship split in two, falling in burning arcs toward the empty sea beyond. The city, when the light faded, Ethan collapsed to one knee, chest heaving. The Oathforge bond eased, leaving him exhausted but alive. The city was safe. Later, in the palace's restored grand hall, Lyra stood before her people, the rightful ruler. Once more, when she turned to Ethan, the cheers grew louder. "You risked your life for me in the alley," she said, so only he could hear, "and again for my people today. The bond the Oathforge gave us is for life, but what I give you now is by choice." Took his hand and placed in it a small silver crest royal sigil of the Virel dynasty. "This makes you first protector of the crown, my equal in council, and my companion in all things." Ethan looked at her, seeing both the ruler and the girl from the rain-soaked alley. He smiled faintly. "Worth the risk,"